Hi guys, welcome to Relationship Stories with TaleTime. The first story is titled, Wife Left Me Cause I Was Caring for My Dying Mom. She Came Crawling Back When I Became a Millionaire. The story starts like this. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs at you when you least expect it. I learned that the hard way when my world turned upside down, all because I chose to do the right thing. My name is James, and this is the story of how my life changed forever. I was your average guy living an average life. I had a decent job, a roof over my head, and a wife I thought would stand by me through thick and thin. Sarah and I had been married for 5 years, and while our relationship wasn't perfect, I believed we had a solid foundation. We had our ups and downs like any other couple, but I never imagined she would abandon me when I needed her the most. Growing up, my mom was my rock. She raised me single-handedly after my dad passed away when I was just a kid. She worked tirelessly to provide for us and always put my needs before her own. Mom was the epitome of strength and selflessness, and I loved her more than anything in this world. Sarah and Mom had a cordial relationship, but I could sense an underlying tension between them. Mom could be a bit overbearing at times, and Sarah often felt like she was competing for my attention. I tried my best to balance my love for both of them, but it wasn't always easy. Everything changed when Mom received a devastating diagnosis, terminal cancer. The doctors gave her 6 months to a year to live, and I was shattered. I couldn't imagine my life without her, and I knew I had to do everything in my power to make her remaining time as comfortable as possible. Sarah and I had a long discussion about Mom's situation. I told her that I wanted to become Mom's primary caregiver, moving her into our home so I could look after her. Sarah was hesitant at first, but eventually agreed, understanding how much this meant to me. Little did I know that this decision would be the catalyst for a series of events that would change my life in ways I never could have imagined. But let's start slow and from the beginning. The day Mom received her cancer diagnosis was the day my world started to crumble. I sat in the doctor's office, holding her hand as the oncologist delivered the news that would change our lives forever. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, he said, his voice filled with sympathy. I'm afraid it's quite advanced. Mom squeezed my hand, her eyes glistening with tears. How long do I have? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. With treatment, we're looking at 6 months to a year, the doctor replied. But there are no guarantees. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Mom had always been the picture of health, and now she was facing a death sentence. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into researching treatment options and making arrangements for Mom's care. I wanted to do everything in my power to give her the best possible quality of life in the time she had left. Sarah tried to be supportive at first, but I could tell she was struggling with the idea of having Mom move in with us. Are you sure about this, James? She asked one evening as we were getting ready for bed. It's a lot to take on, and we both have our own lives to live. I sighed, knowing she had a point. I know it won't be easy, but she's my mom, Sarah. I can't just abandon her when she needs me the most. Sarah nodded, but I could see the reluctance in her eyes. I understand. Just don't forget about us in the process, okay? I promised her I wouldn't, but deep down, I knew that balancing my responsibilities as a son and a husband would be a challenge. Mom moved in with us a few weeks later, and I quickly settled into my new role as her primary caregiver. I took her to doctor's appointments, administered her medications, and made sure she was as comfortable as possible. It was exhausting, both physically and emotionally, but I was determined to be there for her every step of the way. As the weeks turned into months, however, I could feel the strain on my relationship with Sarah. She became increasingly distant and resentful of the time and attention I was giving to Mom. I tried to include her in Mom's care, but she always seemed to find an excuse to be somewhere else. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, I found Sarah in our bedroom, packing a suitcase. What's going on? I asked, my heart sinking. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears. I can't do this anymore, James. I feel like I'm losing you to your mother, and I can't compete with that. I was stunned. Sarah, it's not a competition. Mom is dying, and I need to be there for her. But that doesn't mean I love you any less. She shook her head. It's not just about love, James. It's about priorities. And right now, your priority is your mother, not me. I tried to reason with her, to make her see that I was doing the best I could, but she was resolute. I'm sorry, James, but I need some space. I'm going to stay with my sister for a while. As she walked out the door, I felt like my world was collapsing around me. I was losing my wife, just as I was losing my mother. I didn't know how I was going to make it through this, but I knew I had to stay strong for Mom's sake. Over the next few months, I threw myself into caring for Mom, pushing aside my own pain and heartbreak. Her health continued to deteriorate, and I could see the toll it was taking on her. But through it all, she remained the same loving, supportive mother she had always been. "I'm so proud of you, James," she told me one day, her voice weak and raspy. "I know this hasn't been easy for you, but you've been my rock through it all." I squeezed her hand, fighting back tears. "I wouldn't have it any other way, Mom. You've always been there for me, and now it's my turn to be there for you." As Mom's health declined, my marriage continued to deteriorate. Sarah rarely came home anymore, and when she did, we barely spoke. The tension between us was palpable, and I knew something had to give. One evening, Sarah called me from her sister's place. "James, we need to talk," she said, her voice cold and distant. I felt a sense of dread wash over me. "What's going on, Sarah?" "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said, "and I've come to a decision. I can't live like this anymore, James. I can't be second fiddle to your mother." I was stunned. "Sarah, that's not fair. My mother is dying. She needs me. And what about what I need?" Sarah snapped. "I'm your wife, James. I should be your priority." I could feel my anger rising. "So what are you saying? That I should just abandon my mother in her time of need?" "I'm saying that you need to choose, James. It's either me or your mother. I can't keep living in her shadow." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could she ask me to make such an impossible choice? "Sarah, please don't do this. We can work this out." But Sarah was unmoved. "I'm sorry, James, but I've made up my mind. If you choose your mother, then I'm done. I'll file for divorce." The line went dead, and I was left reeling. I couldn't believe that my wife, the woman I had promised to love and cherish for the rest of my life, was giving me an ultimatum. How could she be so selfish, so heartless? In the end, there was no choice to make. I couldn't abandon my mother, not when she needed me the most. If Sarah couldn't understand that, then maybe we were never meant to be together in the first place. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and heartache. Sarah filed for divorce, just as she had promised, and I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. I threw myself into caring for Mom, using her needs as a distraction from my own pain. But as Mom's health continued to decline, the reality of my situation began to sink in. I was now a soon-to-be divorced man, caring for my dying mother on my own. The financial and emotional burden was overwhelming, and there were days when I didn't know how I was going to make it through. Mom could sense my struggle, and she did her best to comfort me. "I'm so sorry, James," she said one day, her voice weak and raspy. "I never wanted to be a burden on you." I shook my head, fighting back tears. "You could never be a burden, Mom. You're the most important person in my life." She smiled softly. "And you're the most important person in mine. I know I don't have much time left, but I want you to know how proud I am of you, James. You've been my rock through all of this." I squeezed her hand, my heart aching. "I love you, Mom. I'll always be here for you." In the months that followed, I did my best to stay strong for Mom's sake. I took her to her doctor's appointments, made sure she was comfortable, and cherished every moment we had together. But as her health continued to decline, I knew our time was running out. One evening, as I sat by Mom's bedside, holding her hand, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "James," she whispered, "I need you to promise me something." "Anything, Mom," I said, my voice trembling. "Promise me that you won't let this destroy you. That you'll find happiness again, even if it's not with Sarah." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I promise, Mom. I'll make you proud." She smiled, her eyes drifting closed. "You already have, my dear boy. You already have." That was the last conversation I ever had with my mother. She passed away peacefully in her sleep that night, with me by her side. As I held her hand and wept, I knew that my life would never be the same. But I also knew that I had to keep going, if only to honor the memory of the incredible woman who had raised me. The day of Mom's funeral was the hardest day of my life. I stood at the grave site, surrounded by a small group of family and friends, feeling like my heart had been ripped out of my chest. As I listened to the pastor's words, I couldn't help but think about all the ways Mom had shaped my life. She had been my guiding light, my constant source of love and support. And now she was gone. In the weeks that followed, I struggled to find my footing. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the gaping hole in my life. But no matter how busy I kept myself, I couldn't escape the pain of losing Mom. About a month after the funeral, I received a call from Mom's lawyer. "James," he said, "I need you to come to my office. There's something we need to discuss regarding your mother's will." I was surprised. Mom had never mentioned anything about a will, and I couldn't imagine what she could have left me. I made an appointment for the following day and tried not to get my hopes up. When I arrived at the lawyer's office, he greeted me with a somber smile. "James," he said, "I know this is a difficult time for you. But I have some news that I think will bring you some comfort." He handed me a thick envelope. "Your mother left you something in her will. Something substantial." I opened the envelope with trembling hands and began to read. As I scanned the document, my eyes widened in disbelief. Mom had left me her entire estate, including her house, her savings, and a sizable investment portfolio. I was a millionaire. I sat back in my chair, stunned. I had never imagined that Mom had so much money. She had always lived a modest life, never one for extravagance or luxury. But as I read through the details of her estate, I realized that she had been quietly building a nest egg for years, all with the intention of leaving it to me. As I left the lawyer's office that day, I felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, I was overwhelmed with gratitude for Mom's incredible generosity. She had given me a gift that would change my life forever. But on the other hand, I felt a deep sense of sadness. No amount of money could ever replace the love and guidance she had given me throughout my life. In the days that followed, I began to make plans for my new life. I quit my job, knowing that I now had the financial freedom to pursue my passions. I started volunteering at a local cancer support group, feeling a deep sense of connection to others who had lost loved ones to the disease. But even as I started to build a new life for myself, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. I still missed Mom every day, and the pain of losing her never really went away. One day, as I was going through some of Mom's old things, I found a letter addressed to me. It was dated just a few weeks before she passed away. With trembling hands, I opened it and began to read. "My dearest James," it began, "if you're reading this, it means that I'm gone. I know that the pain of losing me must be unbearable, but I want you to know that I am at peace. I have lived a long and happy life, and I am so grateful for every moment I got to spend with you." Tears streamed down my face as I continued to read. "I know that the past few months have been difficult for you, James. I know that your marriage has suffered because of me. But I want you to know that none of this is your fault. You did everything you could to care for me, and I am so proud of the man you have become." The letter went on to explain Mom's decision to leave me her estate. "I have always known that you were destined for great things, James. But I also know that life can be unpredictable. I wanted to make sure that you would always have a safety net, no matter what happened. Use this money to build the life you've always dreamed of. Follow your passions, and never let anyone tell you that you can't achieve your goals." As I finished reading the letter, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Mom had known exactly what I needed to hear, even from beyond the grave. She had given me the gift of a new beginning, and I knew that I had to make the most of it. It had been 6 months since Mom's passing, and I was finally starting to feel like myself again. I had used some of the money from Mom's estate to buy a new house, a beautiful 2-story craftsman with a big backyard and plenty of room for my new hobbies. I had taken up woodworking and gardening, finding solace in the simple pleasures of working with my hands. One day, as I was out in the yard planting some new flowers, I heard a car pull up in the driveway. I looked up to see a familiar figure stepping out of the driver's seat. It was Sarah. I felt my heart start to race as she walked towards me, a hesitant smile on her face. "Hi, James," she said softly. "Can we talk?" I nodded, wiping my hands on my jeans. "What are you doing here, Sarah?" She looked down at the ground, shifting her weight from foot to foot. "I heard about your mom's passing. And about the inheritance. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry for your loss." I felt a flash of anger. "You're sorry? You left me when I needed you the most. You gave me an ultimatum and then walked out on our marriage. And now you're sorry?" Sarah had the decency to look ashamed. "I know, James. I was selfish and I was wrong. But I've had a lot of time to think about things, and I realize now how much I miss you. I was hoping that maybe we could start over." I shook my head in disbelief. "Start over? Sarah, you made your choice. You chose to leave me when I was at my lowest point. And now that I have money, you suddenly want to come back?" Sarah's face flushed. "It's not like that, James. I know I made a mistake. But I still love you. I want to make things right." I felt a bitter laugh escape my lips. "You love me? Or do you love the idea of being married to a millionaire?" Sarah's eyes widened. "James, that's not fair. I didn't even know about the money until recently." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "Maybe not. But the fact remains that you left me when I needed you the most. You abandoned our marriage because you couldn't handle the fact that I was taking care of my dying mother. And now you expect me to just forget about all of that and take you back?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "James, please. I know I messed up. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. I'll go to therapy, I'll do anything. Just give me another chance." For a moment, I felt a flicker of doubt. Maybe Sarah really was sorry. Maybe we could work things out. But then I thought about all the pain and heartache she had caused me. I thought about the nights I had spent crying myself to sleep, wondering what I had done to deserve such a selfish and uncaring wife. And I knew that I could never go back to that life. I took a deep breath and looked Sarah in the eye. I'm sorry, Sarah. But I can't do this. I can't go back to the way things were. I've worked too hard to build a new life for myself, and I'm not going to let you ruin that. Sarah's face crumpled. James, please. Don't do this. I shook my head. I'm not doing anything, Sarah. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. I want a divorce. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. A divorce? But James, we can work this out. I held up a hand to stop her. No, Sarah. We can't. I've already talked to a lawyer, and I'm filing for divorce. I'm not going to let you manipulate me into taking you back just because I have money now. Sarah's face twisted in anger. So that's what this is about? The money? You think I'm just some gold digger looking for a payday? I shrugged. I don't know what you are, Sarah. But I do know that I can't trust you. And I'm not going to let you take advantage of me or my inheritance. Sarah's shoulders slumped in defeat. Fine. If that's what you want, then I guess there's nothing I can do to change your mind. I nodded. I'm sorry it had to end this way, Sarah. But I need to do what's best for me. And that means cutting you out of my life for good. As Sarah turned to walk away, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I also knew that I was making the right decision. I had worked too hard to build a new life for myself to let anyone, even my ex-wife, tear it down. In the months following my divorce from Sarah, I threw myself into building the life I had always dreamed of. With the money from Mom's inheritance, I had the freedom to pursue my passions and create a future that was entirely my own. I started by investing in myself. I took classes in woodworking and gardening, honing my skills and learning new techniques. I volunteered at local charities, using my time and resources to give back to the community that had supported me through my darkest days. As I explored new hobbies and interests, I found myself surrounded by a new circle of friends who shared my values and passions. We went on hiking trips together, attended cooking classes, and spent long evenings discussing our hopes and dreams for the future. For the first time in my life, I felt truly fulfilled. I was no longer defined by my role as a husband or a son, but by the person I had become. I was confident, self-assured, and grateful for the opportunities that life had given me. Of course, there were still moments of sadness and grief. I missed Mom every day, and there were times when the pain of losing her felt as fresh as ever. But I knew that she would have been proud of the man I had become, and that knowledge gave me the strength to keep moving forward. As I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this point, I realized that everything I had gone through, the pain of losing Mom, the betrayal of Sarah's abandonment, the unexpected gift of Mom's inheritance, had shaped me into the person I was today. I had learned that life is unpredictable, and that the people we love can disappoint us in ways we never imagined. But I had also learned that we have the power to choose our own path, to build a life that is authentic and fulfilling, no matter what obstacles we may face. Looking back, I realized that Mom's greatest gift to me wasn't the money she had left behind, but the love and values she had instilled in me throughout my life. She had taught me the importance of hard work, integrity, and compassion, and those lessons had served me well in the face of adversity. As I sat on the porch of my new home, watching the sun set over the horizon, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I knew that there would be more challenges ahead, more moments of grief and heartache. I raised a glass of Mom's favorite wine in a silent toast to the woman who had given me everything. Thanks, Mom, I whispered, feeling a tear slide down my cheek. For everything. Update to the story. 2 years after my divorce from Sarah, I found myself in a place I never could have imagined. I was happy, fulfilled, and surrounded by people who loved and supported me for who I was, not what I had. I had started a small woodworking business, creating custom pieces for clients who appreciated my craftsmanship and attention to detail. It wasn't a huge operation, but it was mine, and I took pride in every piece I made. One day, as I was working in my shop, I heard a knock at the door. I opened it to find Sarah standing there, looking nervous and uncertain. James, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I know I have no right to be here, but I wanted to apologize. For everything. I looked at her, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face, to tell her that she had lost the right to apologize the moment she walked out on our marriage. But another part of me realized that holding on to that anger and resentment would only hurt me in the long run. I appreciate your apology, Sarah, I said, my voice calm and measured. But I've moved on. I'm happy now, and I'm not going to let the past hold me back anymore. Sarah nodded, her eyes filling with tears. I understand, she said. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, and that I hope you find all the happiness you deserve. With that, she turned and walked away, and I watched her go, feeling a sense of closure wash over me. I knew that I would never forget the pain she had caused me, but I also knew that I had the strength to forgive her and move forward with my life. As I turned back to my work, I caught sight of a photo on the wall, a picture of Mom and me, taken just a few months before she passed away. In the photo, we were both smiling, our arms wrapped around each other in a tight hug. Here are my thoughts about the story. Wow guys, this story really hit home for me. I've been through some tough times myself, and I know how hard it can be to pick yourself up and keep going when it feels like the whole world is against you. But reading about James's journey, the way he cared for his mom, the way he handled his ex-wife's betrayal, the way he built a new life for himself, it just shows that we all have the strength inside us to overcome anything. It's not easy, and it takes a lot of hard work and courage, but it's possible. Thanks for sharing this story, James. And guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. If you cannot get enough of my content, please subscribe to my channel, like the video and post a comment to support me. I will see you again tomorrow.